Yo! Little surprise video here. This is True Crypto 28, Mr. Anderson on Twitter. Don't even know if I'm going to produce this, let this video out to the public, but just in case, let me give that intro for those that don't know me. Today we're going to talk a little bit about trend. Actually, what I'm going to do is introduce something that I'm going to eventually teach and present as another option and another way to open people's minds to looking at trend and coming up with trend-based systems and things of that nature. I am not teaching it today, but I do have to give some elements of it out quickly. Some people might not get it, but I have to give some out quickly so that people understand it. Then my plan is down the road, and this is at least several weeks, and it could be longer, so don't hold me to it, guys. But at some point, I'm going to then have a plan to teach it, over probably several videos, kind of break that down so that it's a little bit easier for others to follow. I have some major allergies, so I'm probably going to hit the mute button if I make it to the mute button on time while I go ahead and cough one up. Anyway, so here we go. Let's just kind of jump into it, right? So basically what we're going to utilize, it's not the system that we're going to look at today is not much different than what you guys see that I always use for the most part, right? Which, I tend to use this 9 and a 45. I might have the 200 lingering. And I like to use that on almost all time frames. But I also understand that some people love it as well. Some people probably get confused by it. Same thing can happen with the system I'm telling you about today. But the thing is that I just want to present other opportunities. Like the Matrix, when I see this, I'm seeing, blonde, brunette, redhead, something we talk about in Discord all the time. That I see these things, and if I lose my 9, it brings me into okay, I'm on guard. Are we going to hit that 45, etc.? If we flip these, I'm paying attention as well, right? These are all things that I'm paying attention to when we're talking about trend. And of course, I've been doing this a long time, so of course you're gonna have a natural grasp for things because you do them a lot. Well, today the focus is going to be primarily on using trending bands, right? I'm not going to give you the settings for it. You could actually alternate them. Once we get into the teaching process, you might find settings that work for you. We're not going to talk about that. All you need to know is there's a green one and a red one. In this chart, this is a daily chart that we're looking at. So on this chart, there's a green and there's a red. That's all you need to know about, right? Let me go ahead and save this. Okay. So there's a green and a red. And what's the point of that? Well, green above red. The only reason I'm showing you this is because I'm actually not going to spend a lot of time on this. Well, I probably will spend a lot of time. I keep saying that, and then it'll probably be 20 minutes at least. But after that, I'm going to do a little bit of a market update using this concept, but not with 2 of them, just with 1 of them. But I got to explain it first. So the first thing is this. Green above red, you got to understand the green has a midline, right? So you have your midline here, and that's the most important line within this set of 3, right? Same thing here. The midline is the most important. But we call them trending bands for a reason, and the whole band matters, and it's going to relate. And I'm going to show you along the way. It's a little bit easier. Hopefully you'll pick up on it. You might have to rewind it a few times just to have a concept of what I'm talking about. But again, many weeks down the road, I know I said I'm going to likely, well, I didn't announce it, but I put out a vote. If people want us to release all of the signals or not, if they feel that would be a benefit. I have, a pretty cool system that produces a significant amount of trades on a daily basis, and I mentioned that I could put that out. I didn't know if I should or shouldn't. I voted on it, and a lot of people, I put out a vote, and pretty much everybody said yes, they want that. So I'm thinking along with that, I'll try to then shortly thereafter release a series of videos where you might be able to utilize that in conjunction with something like this if you feel that you need another trending system or a way to look at things, okay? Enough of a preview. What's going to be the key ingredients here? Well, how do we utilize this? Well, I'd love for them to completely separate, right? That's going to show that you have a nice trend going. What does that mean? All three green above all three red. But I would consider it an uptrend the moment that midline leaves the red. And that's just for this. I get it. You don't even know what they are, meaning how we measured them. It's not important for this video. What's important is that you understand why I'm showing it to you, because this is a prelude to what you're going to learn down the line if you choose to do so. Okay, so I just want to show you that, yeah, right here, this would be an element of substance. But what we want to see that separation. And then we would like to see price either come back, hold the top level. That'd be ideal, really. Reject it and take off. And really, I always want to see it higher high above that level. But if it comes back into the midpoint, that's fine. It can even come to the lower one of the green, right? And that's acceptable as well. Any of those are okay, but you're just lessening the strength, right? So basically, you might say, well, if it's above it, that might be a 1. If it's the midpoint, that might be a 3, 2. If it hits the lower one, that might be a 3, meaning 1 being stronger, 2, 3, etc. But I'm perfectly fine with them coming to the midpoint because the midpoint is the key, obviously, to that. And I want to see that start to hold. So we do see that right here, hold, etc. But the key here is it's not activated until that line is crossed. The midline's taking out the top level of the red, okay? Now, I'm on a daily scale chart. So the one thing I want to really point out here is this thing is going to be late, right? I'll show you in a little bit on a 4-hour and a 1-hour of how this would translate utilizing just one of these instead of two. But we'll get to that later. First, I just wanted to make a little bit of sense in your mind. But the idea is, don't expect it to call it, for instance, the 20K top. We'll get to that. Of course, it's going to be super late. I mean, who knows where it's going to call it? Maybe it's going to call it at 8,000, 6,000, the reversal. Why? Because you went to a parabolic uptrend. So you're not going to be on a daily scale. You're going to be on something. You guys probably know I'm always on a 4-hour, right? For something along those lines. And I'll show you the difference between the two as to why. But the thing is that while you're on that 4-hour early, like for instance, on this channel, we flipped bearish the last time at 66,000, and we didn't have to flip bullish again until 16,000. So I'll actually show you with this system as well how that might have worked a little bit later in the video. But with that said, what happens here is unique, right? In that it's going to allow you to try to catch the chunk. The point of any trending system is to allow you to participate in this. I'm not worried about being early, nor am I too worried about being late, because there's a difference between late to flipping versus holding on to those longs. You wouldn't hold on to the longs because there's going to be elements within this that I'll tell you along the way, and I might just point them out now so it doesn't seem like I'm making them up as I go along. That would concern you. First of all, if you take out the bottom side on close, that is an element of concern. Does it mean you flipped? Well, it can be, right? If I'm using just one, which I'm going to be doing on the lower time frames, then yes, it could mean that you flipped. Of course, I'd rather see it come back. So let's say we lost this level. I'd rather see it come back here and either reject the bottom side or reject the midline and then go. If it's the top one and reject, I could live with that as well, but I'd rather it be the mid or the top. And then, yeah, that could be a rejection. Now, when I have these two up here, of course, that's probably mean reversion back into this higher level, if that's the case. But I'm just trying to point out a lot of concepts at once, and it'll come together shortly, I promise you. Okay, so long story short, why do this? I want to catch this chunk. Look at this thing. You see this? I mean, stare at its beauty for a minute. It really is an amazing thing, right? So those are the moves we want to catch. So that's why I kind of pointed out. Okay, why? Let's kind of just go back in time. We're not going to go beyond 2015. You notice we're already above this green. I mean, this guy on this particular chart wasn't holding up, and obviously it's below it. So we're already broken out longs, right? And you would have a daily scale upward bias until, now I'll show you again later on the 4-hour that certainly you would have been looking for shorts in these big move downs, etc. But higher time frame, no. Now, what happens? You're green, essentially all the way back here, catching the greater parts of uptrends, right? When you get in these zones where they start to mesh, where the green comes into the red, you're in chop city, right? So this is chop, 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 chop. You expect it. You're playing range plays in those moments. You're probably doing well with those range plays. Every time it pops out a little bit, you get a little excited, but you know you need the whole thing to pop out, which actually happens right there. I don't know if this is going to be red or green, but let's see. Green, perfect. So now I'm looking for longs again, and look, you catch a tremendous run. Don't let this fool you. This is like 560 to 790, which is massive. Come back in, hold the lower level. That's good. So you could have been hopeful. I mean, this is a big drop. Obviously, you lost this particular level, which is key. But the point is, you could have looked for, at that point, reasons to long on lower time frame, and it probably would have paid off for you. Now, when you lose the green level right there, you're going to be in a position to where you say, all right, well, I do have some issues with this. And of course, we'll break this down a lot more when we do a series of videos on it. But I'm coming back in, and now you already know once you've lost that on close that there's some problems in paradise here, right? You're probably coming into the chop zone at the minimum. You might even lose or even flip. When you lose this level, yes, you have to be highly concerned that you might flip. In fact, you get a rejection there that you could have played for a few days. It stays bearish, obviously, for a couple weeks, but it ends up holding up pretty well in the overall uptrend holds, right? Because this midline never passed under that level. So despite all that daily scale chop mess that you have, you could have drawn a diagonal, you could have done a bunch of different things. You could have put yourself into a position to say, all right, well, I knew to be on guard. But what ends up happening is that at some point, when you start to see the midlines here start to hold support, there could have been a reason to begin to long again, right? I'm not trying to claim perfection or anything along those lines, but I think if you take a look at it and give an honest perspective, you could say, like, well, if I was looking at it with this view, yes, I'm in the chop zone, but you can notice that the red begins to act as an out level of support, and then the midline green also begins to, while you start to put in higher lows. And then eventually creep back out. Of course, I want a higher high above that level. So I want it to creep out, and then I want a higher high. Technically, that is a very slight higher high. You know, I don't like those. I don't like them when they're slight. This one's much better. So let's just say, even though that was a higher high, I don't want to take credit for it. There, I'd feel a little bit better if that situation. Of course, you want them to eventually separate, and they separate again right about there. The point being is that you end up in a uptrend that is substantial for a while. You get that threat, which is the mean reversion. Come back again, some really high time frame ranging in this situation. Ultimately, hold on one second. All right, didn't want to cough on you. Okay, and then you get into a beautiful trend, right? Above the level. Okay, this is a good example to show real quick again, and then I'll start speeding it up. Above the level, outside again, you see the green is outside the red. Hold the mid level. That's the perfect situation. I mean, perfect is top side, obviously. But in a trending environment, you're perfectly fine with it holding mid level like that. Hold. And then pop back out again. Again, we always look for higher highs above the level if we can. It happens here, and it just starts an epic move. And again, I just want to catch a chunk. What is the point of a trending system? Is it to be perfect? No. Is it to be early? No. It is to catch the chunk of the move. So this simplified look to where, yes, you had some areas of daily scale chop and things of that nature. But what does it end up giving you? It ends up giving you this. And I'm telling everybody, I know the people that have caught them, they know. But if you've never caught one, when you catch one of these, you're going to realize, oh, these are absolute game changers. Not to mention the fact when you're living above these levels and you go to the lower time frame, what do I mean by that? You got green above red, price above all greens. You know, H4 pullbacks. Yes, please. That's what I want. I mean, that's what's going to allow you to catch these and catch that, catch these type of things. And now you're catching pivots within this miraculous move, which is an amazing thing. I'll speed ahead now. Again, we came back in. This is like a chalk, right? For those that understand that concept, big range, that's very important, right? You'll see me all the time. Any type of range scenario that I see, I want to give it a big rectangle. Only reason I'm rectangling this giant area is because we ended up breaking a little bit of structure here. So I could say like, oh, that's chalk, meaning first change of character within an uptrend. Does that mean we're going to flip bearish? No, it doesn't mean that. What it means is this range suddenly is very important. That's what that always means, is there's a range here, and that range is important. It's a battle zone. That's what you need to see. That when you see something like that occur on any time frame, you got to say, oh, wait a second. What they're telling me is that this battle zone is important, right? Because I went boom, 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 took out this particular level right there. Technically, I guess that can be looked at actually as a swing failure, which is fine too. But either way, it's an important zone once you made that range. You set that range. So in this case, it's just a simple range, whether you want to call it chalk or not. Key range. So taking that obviously is beneficial. And guess what ends up happening again? Well, you never lost anything. You were in uptrend mode the whole way through. You could have understood, again, this part takes time, but you could have understood, like, no, we're in a ranging type scenario here on the higher time frame. Maybe the weekly is doing some consolidating, etc. But you're still in overall daily scale bull mode. Now, again, am I trading from the daily scale? No, I don't trade off the daily scale alone. I can't. But obviously, if it's giving you directional bias, then that could be helpful. Now, what's directional bias? Well, I get directional bias from my 4-hour the majority of the time. But I like it better when my daily scale directional bias matches, right? So that's the benefit. So suddenly my 4-hour comes into light and is matching my daily scale directional bias. This is a perfect situation because that means you probably got a 4-hour pullback into a daily scale uptrend. And then the 4-hour probably went from bear to bull again. Great. And that's how you catch this chunk, right? So, by the way, I'm just spending a lot of time in this daily just to kind of show you and get you used to this. We'll rush through a lot of it now. This move goes all the way up to 20,000. So can you imagine? You're using a simplified system. By the way, right here, yes, you'd have been a little concerned. There might be some mean reversion into that. Once it jumps back over, you might have been playing some longs. You really want this top side here to be taken out for a break of structure. It happens here. So there's going to be areas still where you're confused and you're thinking, well, I don't know. Is it in doubt? And that's okay. You want to be that way. You want to be in a position where you're thinking, should I have a level of concern in this moment? The idea is as long as you're catching these chunk moves or participating in most of these chunk moves, you're going to do just fine. Doesn't mean you're not going to be wrong at times. Doesn't mean you're not going to miss things. Doesn't mean you're not going to be early, late, etc. Those are all still going to happen. Okay. Why show this? Well, we come into this level here. Awesome parabolic move. Of course, your turn is going to be late, right? I don't care about early and late. I care about catching chunks, right? Okay, so here we go. First sign of daily scale trend giving me real problems is this break right there. I close, but guess what? It goes back up the other way. Hey, maybe we're still going. There were certainly some structure issues here, right? We took out that level. Again, I told you about this earlier. This is a much better example of that chalk where I say, well, suddenly this zone is super important. Now that's separate from this trend conversation, but right here, up, higher, swing failure, boom, boom, boom. Take that level out on close, even though I'd rather be a clean break of structure. This particular range now showed me, nope, you had some change of character here with the wicking. You ended up taking it on close within that wick, so I can understand if it's, yes, it's still one big range, at least the way I would look at things, but at the same time, it's now a key range. And when you take that level out, side conversation here, you got a problem, right? Just from structure standpoint alone, we know we're in a bearish environment there. So that would happen pretty early, but still just using this technique, which we admit is going to be slow, you end up in a circumstance where, all right, maybe it'll come in for a mean reversion and then hopefully go again, is what people would think. But the moment you start losing that on close, oh, you got a problem, right? So you got a problem here. Now I want to point out a couple things. We went break, break. So this was confusing. Break, break on that side. But then break again. So we're following the break. Remember, what we're looking for on that is I want a mid or bottom, meaning on the bear side, hold, right? So I would have liked this, if this was the case, if we were going higher, I would like to hold the top side and then go higher and show a higher high, or hold the midpoint and then go higher high, which didn't happen. But guess what finally did happen? Even though we went confusing break, break after a massive parabolic move, which is understandable, it's just a triangle, right? You're going to have just a triangle in that situation. But the idea is the markets don't know what they're doing. That's why it's chopping around. I mean, it's a real battle. That's the idea. Guess what? The smart money ends up being the one that's short, obviously, but there was an actual battle in these levels, and it was legit, and it lasted for a long time. Now, just to speed things up a little bit, lose that level, look what happens. Reject the midpoint, rejection with the confirmation candle. You are flipped on the green, if you're just using the green, and usually you're just using the green, this is just a look at overall market sentiment that I would put on any alt or Bitcoin or ETH or whatever it might be. Or by the way, any stock as well. I would change the settings on stock because this is a 24-hour market. I use different settings for these because it's open 7 days a week. But same concept on stocks. And guess what? Works extremely well as well. Okay, so here you go. Boom. Rejection right there. I'm confirmed. That's 13,500. So now it's about being chunky, right? So just utilizing the green. I have this red marker over here because that's using the green and the red. But just using the green, which you absolutely can do. In fact, that's what we're going to do on the lower time frame. You would have been confirmed looking for shorts at that point, and you could see that you literally flush out down to 5,800, which is an amazing move, right? So it's an amazing move. And then all of these moves back up, what ends up happening, you would come back and say, oh, well, I need this all to pop all the way up, and it doesn't. It actually gives you a rejection right there. That's what you want to see. Now, this one does creep above, so it's a little bit, you'd been keeping an eye like, oh, maybe we're going back above, but you could see it's all what? Within the supply zone, and then rejects again. I'm not saying these are easy. They take a lot more time to get used to and learn. You know, I'm talking about I've given you 10 minutes of this. You need weeks and weeks and weeks of study and practice, but eventually these are the type of things you can get, which is why I bring it up. With that said, obviously structure-wise, you see that we are looking at a big problem here, right? You're putting in a much lower high. So that's an issue to begin with on the higher time frame. So that's going to be a higher time frame look at that. But regardless, it is what it is. I just want to show you this, that at this point of this red line, the reason why that's there, hold on one more second. That is when we got the green midpoint crossing under the red bottom level, right? So within that band, you had that there. So late, you might say, oh, that's such a late move. No, I don't care about long. I don't care about early late. This isn't early late. We weren't long during any of this, right? We were in a situation to where we're just observing what was happening. And at this point we said, oh no, we're going to look for reasons, even on this second system, which is using the green and the red, reasons to short. Guess what? What's a good reason to short? Rejecting the bottom side. Oh, that's ultra weak. Rejection, rejection, rejection. 3 of them. Nice leg down. Well, now you come back up. You say, oh, well, look at this. It's threatening. It's threatening. Yeah, it's threatening. It goes into a supply zone. And then you start losing this level. Well, you're already looking for reasons to short. So when this happens, oh, no, that's a problem. It needed to come out, come back and hold, make a higher high above the level, right? That's when it needed to start doing that. None of that occurred. Your short bias is in place, and look what you get, this chunky leg right here. Beautiful. And it turns into a green leg where you go green down, green down, green down, etc. Perfect scenario, right? Another sharp move up. By the way, again, I think I mentioned it, but you can alternate these settings. You might find settings that you like different once we get into that, okay? I wouldn't recommend that in the beginning. I'd say just use my settings, but ultimately, eventually you might tweak it for yourself, and I would encourage that once you know what you're doing. Same type of thing that goes on. We're still looking for short biases, right? We're going to say, no, we want exhaustion, right? Let me just bring up something like this. Exhaustion, right? Like, you guys know my tools that I use, right? I'm looking for exhaustion. This is what this is. That's an exhaustion. I'm looking for exhaustion. I'm looking for exhaustion. Look what happens at these points of exhaustion, right? This is a huge divergence. So you went to an exhaustion, it pushed higher. So this one is where, no, it pushed beyond it into a clear resistance with divergence, huge leg down, right? Exhaustion level, leg down. Exhaustion level, leg down, right? Exhaustion level, mini leg with a higher low, pops back up. Bigger exhaustion here. Probably a hidden bear, leg down. Another orderly exhaustion, meaning this is lower than that level, while this is lower than that level. Another leg down, right? So I'm just kind of pointing out how you now can combine things. And although we thought, oh no, this is such a late look. Yeah, it's such a late look. And it gave me that leg and that leg and that leg and this leg all the way down to $3,000. Beautiful. Well, now guess what happens? People are calling for 1,000. People are saying we'll never get past 6,000. Oh, we got all these problems. We're screwed forever. Well, this says we're looking for longs. And you might think, well, that's late. You had this $1,000 candle. Well, the $1,000 candle shocked most people. Now, I know on this channel, we were long already, right here. We really like this. We were calling the old white cough bottom back then. But so there's always other ways, but the idea is just using the trending system, a very simple system. Now, when I say simple, it's hard in that you have to learn it, and none of this is easy. But the system itself is simple. That part is simple. Like, the rules that we give, and when I give it, you'll understand. It's like, no, those are simple rules, right? You'll agree to that part at least. Doesn't mean it's easy to apply, because you do have to know some things, and you might have to relearn some things or learn some things you didn't know before. So that's all part of it. But the idea is that, look what happens. Now I flip here. You may say, oh, you flipped here. Where is that? Well, that's $5,184. Why did I flip there? Well, that midline crossed over my top band. Okay. And look what ends up happening, guys. We come in. Interesting. A midline test. Exactly what we would like to see. Pops back higher. Makes a dramatic move higher. By the way, the higher high above this particular level, above the green, is a perfect scenario. And it goes. Comes back in for quick test. Comes back in for midline test. Now, these threatened a little, so this isn't ideal. I'd rather it be clean holds if it can, but I'm okay with the bottom side holds as well, especially while you have these gaps in here, right? So this is a nice healthy trend until this point, and this thing makes its way up to $14,000, right? 5,000 to 14,000. I think we'll all take near triples in giving us a directional bias element to say, like, no, we were mostly looking for longs, and we got test and test and test and all these different things and higher highs above the level multiple times. This is pretty clearly a rejection below the high, etc. This is a warning sign right here. Do I have any clue where this arrow is? Yes. This is a warning sign right there from the green trend, right? Where you say, oh, that's a problem on the daily scale, right? The daily scale trend is threatened. Now, this is a daily scale higher trend, right? Longer term, where I would need it to flip again, and that's going to be late as always. But hold on one second. But that's a situation here to where we say, okay, trouble in paradise, probably some mean reversion back to this level. Let's see what happens. Go, go, go. Now, we're still in green mode, so might have been some reasons for you to look for longs. Obviously, we have some ugliness going on. Of course, anytime we see something like this, we're going to try to at least do that. These lines don't mean everything, right? But you definitely want to at least see them taken out and then start seeing higher lows built above them for them to have some more purpose. Until then, they kept you out of a little trouble. But ultimately, what ends up happening? Flips red right here. So we flip red, and you might say, oh, well, look at this. It's a nice spring. Well, it is a nice spring, actually. But springs are low hit events. What does that mean? It means just because it's spring doesn't mean it's going to keep going, right? So first of all, it's hard to time a spring, but then when a spring occurs, does that mean it's going to go? No, the idea is to observe the action after the spring. And while it tried to hold, it never left the zone here. We never seen green crossover, so we're still in bear mode. And guess what ends up happening? We flush down. So you end up getting some legs down. Now, this is a nice opportunity to show you that, hey, this thing isn't perfect, right? I go green here. It doesn't last long. Now, is there a caveat? Yeah, this is COVID. This is when COVID happened. But ultimately, where would the trouble have been? Well, you could have been trouble on this candle only, in my opinion, right? Why? Because you held the level right there, held twice. Well, I don't even know if it took out the high 9688. Did it close above it? It did. Okay. So this one closed above. So right here, definitely a problem. But we know that we need this to not only escape the green, but make a higher high for that element of confirmation. And it just simply didn't happen. This also gives you a sign of like, hey, I'm going, I reject instantly. You're out here with no harm done, right? With no harm done. Still, you might be looking for reasons to long, and it just didn't happen. And then, of course, if you're just using green trend, come right back in. We'd lose green trend right there. So right now, even though we're in green, we're worried, right? Why? Because I lost the green trend. I know I'm probably showing you two things at once. So for some people, you're confused. Don't worry. It'll make sense when I go to one in a minute, but I'm just trying to show you this. And then ultimately, what ends up, by the way, I'll show you this on a let me show you this on a 4 hour, okay? Because I don't want you to think like, oh man, you're missing this whole COVID drop. You're not missing it, because you wouldn't be doing this on this time scale. In fact, let me show you, since we're here, what is this, the 20K? Okay. On the 20K run up, right? We kind of mentioned some of this. The white here is the 4 hour trend. This is how I would look at 4 hour trend. Well, just a glance to see you're catching all of that. You're still good. You come back in for holds, all of this. You're still good. Now, this is a concern. Like, uh-oh, because you don't want this to now come up, reject that midline or this bottom line and go south, or you would be looking at a change short-term trend, even though you would know daily scale is up, so that would be a counter. But ultimately, you guys know me, I will trade these 4-hour trends for sure. But anyway, while you had some chop zone here, while you might have had to make a big old square, while you might have had to sit out for a while, you would have been looking for reasons to long, not reasons to short. And you would have had an element of concern right here, but that's okay. And then you're back in business, longing. Now top side holds. These are great. Massive run up. Come back into one more concern. Uh-oh, I'm a little worried. Break back above the box. Okay, we're good. Hold top side. Another big run up. Hold midpoint. Another run up. So on the 4-hour, you can see, and the reason I showed you is because we talked about on the daily scale, yeah, it seems super late. Like, oh, it didn't flip till like 9,000 or whatever the number is. But guess what? On the 4-hour scale, but you guys remember, I think I mentioned this earlier, we flipped at 66,000, right? By the way, we were long all the way basically from 4 or 5,000 to 69,000, and then flipped at 66K down to about 15, and at 16 flipped back long to about 73, but let's call it, at the time of this video, we're at roughly 62-ish and change. So 16 to 62, I think you're going to be pretty happy with that. But let's just see what's going on. Right there, oh, I'm concerned. What do I need for this to be a flip? Rejection, and then an ultimate confirmation, lower low. Reject it. Oh, yeah, you could have literally been an aggressive short right there on this candle, right? Because you want this to be a local low after rejection, which happens there. Now you're talking 17,663 as our true flip point. Flip. That thing takes you down to 10,000 and change. What a move, right? Back into another perfect rejection on the 4-hour. Nice move now into a higher low, but ultimately got another great leg. Now, you want rejection with confirmation. Didn't happen. You did get a little rejection here, no confirmation candle. Pushing higher. Okay, now I'm paying attention again. As I mentioned, oh, wait a second. Are we going to hold this level with a confirmation? Nope, didn't happen. In fact, it breaks down the other side. Yes, we're still bearish. Now you get the rejection top side, and it happened. The rejection candle is the confirmation candle, right? Because it's a bearish engulfing. Looking for shorts again. Now it flips back over the other way, and finally you get this bull hold. Come back, you play it that way as well. So for a few days, you could have been participating in that move from 14,600 to 17,000. Comes back, you're looking for those hold. Doesn't happen. Lose it. Uh-oh, right there you lost it. We're in trouble. You might have missed that, but rejection bottom side, you definitely caught that. Rejection on the middle. Now that candle is too big for me to play, so I will take no credit for that. I would not have played that after a massive candle. I might have been looking on 15-minute chart and saying, well, maybe I can catch some lows if it's really going to dump out. Didn't happen that way. Come back in, another rejection, because we're bearish, right? At this point, rejection, down, rejection. You caught the whole damn thing down in that situation, right? Come back in, I'm paying attention. Is it going to hold anywhere? No, because I would need it to hold and then have a candle that takes out the high of that candle. It didn't happen. So we're still bearish, rejection down. You get the point here, right? All the way down on this 4-hour, even though you had all these incidents where you would have to pay attention and think, well, oh, are we flipping? Just didn't happen. Bearish. All of them. So on the 4-hour, that's why I like to use the 4-hour, because I'm not going to get caught off sides as much, right? That's kind of the idea. By the way, comes back up, finally higher high above that level. I don't like this, right? I don't like coming back into the levels like this, if I'm being honest with you, because this is more chop than anything else when I get that. I'm drawing rectangles when that happens. Taking this level out would have been good. Coming back in, I wouldn't have liked it. Choppy. I like to see something that's cleaner, which we finally get right there, a little bit of clean midpoint. So this run is something I could have definitely participated in, because that candle gives me a little confirmation after these holds right there. And you get this big move up again, right? So you could see on that 4-hour how this can make a difference. Okay, so let me finish up that daily and then we'll kind of circle back to this 4-hour. All right. So that's, oh, did I show the COVID thing? That was kind of the idea here. So let's kind of show how this happened in the COVID element. Boom, boom, boom. By the way, you're catching all of this move down, right? All of this move down. 4-hour, you're probably getting in around the same time on the absolute low. Right now, you would have got in earlier, but there would have been some chop in there. But I want to get over to COVID really quickly. And then we can give another couple examples of this 4 hour and 1 hour. And then I'll bring it very quickly to the end to show you a little bit of a tiny market update, just utilizing this of how this kind of came about with trends, right? All right. So we mentioned, right, just one more time to circle back. Oh, we went green here and it flipped, but there was no hold and confirmation candle that would have taken you. Now, if you would have played this, I would have understood. I think I pointed that out actually about 5 minutes ago. But the next day you would say, oh, I was wrong. That's a bearish engulfing. That's not good. Believe the chart, right? You got to believe the chart. Don't believe your entries. Don't fall in love with your entries. No, believe your eyes. So that's always the key here. And you say, oh, look, it flipped here. It flipped back there. This is crap. Then you had to wait to flip long. Oh, 100%. That's why I'm on the 4 hour, right? Because my daily can be convoluted and can be late. But this is also a black swan event. But look what happens in that black swan event on the 4 hour. Same scenario here. You think, well, what's going on? Well, what's going on is you start clearly putting in lower high, first of all. And the other thing is if you're living above the channel, now suddenly you're struggling to get out from it, right? So I say, oh, now I'm barely peeking out and it's a lower high. Now I can't even make it out of that. That's a problem. Now, of course, I will point out that we broke this here. So I went from bull mode to pay attention mode to some rejections here. Nothing clean. I'm looking for some clean rejection. Again, now I end up losing it again. Same thing. If I find a clean rejection, it doesn't happen until here. But this is 9,980. I mean, even if I use the low of this candle right there, which is the confirmation candle, 9771. From 9771, right? That's here, right there. I'm bearish, right? So I would have been bearish with this system, and guess what? Flush out. Come back up again. Again, we'll pay attention when we're up here. Do we get a hold? Do we get a confirmation candle thereafter? No, 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 right? By the way, you would have seen this probably as an entry where you had to flip out. So I would have been short and wrong here, which is, I want to point that out. You're still going to lose trades. But you just caught this mega leg down. You tried to re-enter. You were wrong. Now, again, it was a swing failure, so you could have escaped that. But I don't want to say that. I just want to show confirmations and say, no, look, let's call that wrong, right? Which is fine. Pop out again. You're trying to pop out. Of course, you want it to be above the 200, right? So you'd want it to pop above the 200. And again, I've already told you, you want to then see it hold a level and then make a higher high above that level, above the channel itself, above the band itself, I should say. Well, guess what happens? We're bearish all the way from this point on. Come back here, massive rejection candle. This is a absolute confirmation with the rejection. So you get both. Why? Because it takes out about 10 candles or so. It was a rejection itself. That is 8901. And that 8901, literally, aside from giving you a couple more entries, so just like I said now, we might have tried this one over here and been wrong. And if you would have did the same thing right here, you would have caught the biggest part of this leg within a couple of days, which is awesome. But from 8901 all the way down to 3500, that you would have been on board that. And that's awesome, right? That is an awesome thing. It's an awesome sight. And guess what? You would have flipped pretty early too and been able to ride this train back up. But we'll get back into those type of things. So daily scale, yeah, what's the point of this? The point is that despite that chunk, look what happens. I'm not going to show it all to you, but once it does turn green again, the reason why you like to stick with these things is you're now green from 9,000 to 63,000, right? 65,000, I should say. Very late flip here, not on the 4 hour. I'm going to go ahead and circle it back. You guys all know, but regardless. So this is kind of part of the thing. Now, again, I don't use this particular system anymore myself. Maybe I'll start when I start teaching it. I'll do it. I'll start using it again specifically just so that we're all looking at the same thing, because I think when I use mine, it's a little more advanced probably and a little harder for people at times to kind of see what I'm seeing, which I get, where this is a little bit clearer in terms of what we're seeing at least, right? There's not going to be that element of like, well, what's he seeing versus what I'm seeing? Okay, so now we made our way up to about 65,000. Of course, we're parabolic. Things are really humming. And then here on that 4 hour, we're concerned, right? No clean rejections, but we've definitely entered a zone where we're concerned. We haven't seen any clean rejection. I want to see clean. It has to be clean for me, right? Doesn't happen here on top side, pops itself back out. I might even think, well, hey, maybe I'll consider consider any type of long again if I hold it. And that could have happened here, actually. So you could have been long here, and then it turned on you pretty quickly. But not a loss, probably a break even here or something. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Right there. Hold. I'm just looking at the numbers. So, well, here might have been a little bit of a gain if I say I entered over here, which is certainly possible as well. Small loss, right, once that happened, because you always stick with your stops. But the idea is a little bit of chop in there, but right there you're concerned again because it goes out of the bottom side. And then at that point, we're looking for any type of bear rejection. You get it right there. You get that rejection with the confirmation candle. Short that way through. Another rejection candle up here, all the way down, etc. Of course, you were already short, so it doesn't matter. But you get the point of how this continues on. And then if you'll start to obviously put in market structure first, as always. Start seeing a lot of these things are coming back into supply zone. So these things can really compile on top of each other. Guess what? Poke your way out, hold, you participate in this little long. Sometimes markets are choppy. Sometimes they don't know what they want to do. Backside again, guess what? I'm concerned here again. While you might have had a little bit of a win that ended up breaking even on you, you would have stuck with it because now we're in short mode. And then again, that's a rejection right there. You catch that whole move down. I come back up again. Am I going to get a rejection? I didn't get the rejection. I didn't get the rejection with a confirmation. Back above, I got the rejection to the upside. Another flip again. That takes me all the way up to that 65,000. And then ultimately what we wanted to pay attention to is that you lose the level here. So you're definitely not looking for longs. You're on a what's happening type scenario. And you put yourself into a position that you could have seen a lower low right there. Now, again, would you caught it? No. But did you get caught in it? No. So I don't want to make it. Now, I'll show you the 1 hour in a minute. You could have caught it on that. But regardless, it is what it is. The 4 hour would have had you in a position of saying, like, no, I'm already on guard here. So I'm not getting caught with my pants down ultimately in that situation. And then, of course, you're already looking for shorts. Any type of like bearish engulfing tops or, these type of local tops outside of these ranges are going to be good signals for you. Down. I don't want to do too much of it, but I will just kind of paint the picture just by glancing on the 4 hour so you can see you're catching the majority of that, right? You're catching the majority of these moves down. Chop, I get it, but it's a downside chop. Then you flip up again. You can tell it flips up, right? Some chop in there. You're catching most of that. You had some chop in here again. You're catching most of these moves down. You're catching all of this move up. Sometimes it's choppy. It's okay. But when you know it's choppy, that's a helpful thing as well because you start to utilize your ranging techniques more and more and more. But anyway, we were mentioning this because while this started to break down, you ended up being short for the majority of that time as it made its way down about 28,000 and change, 28 and 6, something like that. And then ultimately would have flipped back long on that 4 hour right here as it made its way back to what? Now there was a little bit of a hiccup here. You went from 20, you would have flipped over here at 31-ish, all the way back up to 52. It flips bearish. Now you could have definitely been caught by that mega candle, so I'm not trying to assume perfection, but my point is chunks, right? We're catching chunks. Short again during most of this time, so you're talking about, this gives you this element to we're looking for shorts. You catch that leg down. You could have participated in that leg down, certainly that one, etc. And then it finally breaks its way through again. Topside hold, we love that. This topside hold at 47,000, and it essentially takes us up to 67 and change. Now, guess what? Before the 69K top on the 4 hour, we were already getting warning signs, right? Warning sign right there. Chopping around, back to another chop down. So I'm go chop. Remember, because I wanted to show me the break, then hold, and then go back again. And that wasn't happening. In fact, it was just showing me that, hey, we're in a chop situation. Pay attention, right? No one's getting anything until here, where it does make a slight higher high. So we're back to a long. That does bring you to that 69K top. But right here at this break, which happened, at 63.6? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Right there, you get that break. I'm sorry. So, wow. I didn't know that it worked out perfectly like this at the time. It 63.18 right there. So that's your 4 hour. And what ends up happening, you get your top rejection, top band with the confirmation candle at 64,295. And of course, you're absolutely in short position from that point on. Huge run down to 55. More rejections. Again, you're on guard here when these are happening. Like, hey, all right, am I going to flip? Am I going to flip? Doesn't happen because you never got the clean break above. Remember, when it breaks, the top side or the bottom side, I then need a clean break of that structure above it. And that's what's going to tell me like, oh, we're flipping, right? Now, can you play a rejection? Yeah, you might have tried to front run it, playing a flip. I get it. So if you would have played along there, completely on board, but your bias still would have been short. Why? Because look at your band. Which way is your band going? Your band is going down, right? So same type of thing. If you tried an early flip, hey, that's trading. But ultimately, we see what happens. Then, of course, at this point, we should be thinking, oh, no, we're going lower. And certainly when you break that, you do, and it goes significantly lower. You catch the majority of that, etc. So just running through it, that's a key there. On the daily, and this will be my last look at the daily, you can see that, yes, although you got that big chop, you are literally short for the entirety of the bear market. The long flip happens right in the level of, what, 22-ish? So at 22-ish, you get the daily scale, which is supposed to be late. That's not even too terribly late, right? That happened before the 25K break. So you had that, and it stayed long until this moment, right? So again, I will, at some point, it's going to be at least weeks, teach this for those that are interested. For those that aren't interested, don't worry. Keep doing your thing, especially if you have a great grasp of trend already. You don't need it. But just remember that trending system should be giving you chunks, right? And they should keep you in a situation of saying, all right, where's the trend? So what is another benefit of this, right? So I can utilize this to identify trends. So with this, I'm going to go down to a 1 hour. These are all set individually amongst themselves. So I'm going to bring this up first to a 1 hour. And this is going to be more of the market update of what's been going on, right? So now this is a 1 hour. So the numbers are different, but same scenario, right? So as you'll notice, this 1 hour trend began, meaning present time right now on March 19th. This thing began, we were in a downtrend pretty clearly until about 38,000. Now this is only on the 1 hour. That 1 hour flipped right here back in January. So in January, I flipped to a bull trend on a 1 hour. And if I played the 1 hour chart, if that was my thing. Now, if I'm on the 1 hour or lower, I don't go lower than 1 hour. You can go to like a 15-minute, especially on a parabolic move. You can say, oh, let me compare the 15 minutes to the 1 hour. In fact, you can do whatever you want as long as you find that you have some edge with it. I should say I can go lower if I want, but I tend not to go lower than the 1 hour. I tend to use that as my guide, as the lowest possible scenario. But I do want to point this out that despite this chop that went on, I was in bull mode on the 1 hour, right? Why? How have you been on it, Mr. A? How'd you do it? Okay, well, I'll show you how I did it. Because I'm looking at trends, right? And a trend tells me that, hey, from January on, I was in a 1 hour trend. Think about how golden this has been. From there until the recent scenario that we took place, and I'll explain it to you in a minute, of what happened. So from there until what? 69,000, right? So until 69,000, a 1 hour trend held, right? Held, came back in. Now again, this is struggling. I'm within trend, etc. And again, you can change the settings a little bit if you find better settings, but it is what it is. We say we started ranging off, so big range going on, pop back out again. Now we're going. Look at that beautiful line going up. Good. Heading up, more ranging, back up again, etc. Now finally, you go into what looks like a swing failure. You drop out here. Doesn't have. By the way, you dropped out there, but it stops there. Now what would I need? I would have needed, you guys should know this already, this level to be taken. Now I need this to come back up, reject. By the way, maybe if I got cute, I might have played a short there. I did not. I'm not playing any shorts, but if I wanted to be cute, I would have played a short. But you would have needed this level to be taken out to confirm that trend, right? If there would have been a little break right there and it came back and rejected, then it would have been that level that needed to be taken out. But it didn't happen. So although we had a fluctuation in this trend, the 1 hour trend remained up in that situation, took that on with like a champ, popped out the top side again, held support. We're liking these. You could have played that. I don't like this. This isn't a clean hold, so I wouldn't have been looking for that specifically. little bit of ranging. Now this is cleaner. You could have played these. Now it's just a crawl at this point, and you should take note of that. Like, well, it's crawling, right? So it's kind of struggling to get itself up, but it did. Come back in. No confirmation candles here, but hold. Nice. Confirmation candle doesn't come until about there. And then ultimately higher high. And it lasted all the way into this recent top until when? Until we put in this low right there. And again, same scenario. I needed that level to then be taken. And it does. It was taken right there. So this is a counter trend, obviously. Let me see. So yes, it is a counter trend to the other time frames. And you might say, well, why are you saying that? Why are you pointing that out? Well, I do have to keep in mind that when the 1 hour is lost in these environments, I'm literally at, this happened at 68,000 and change. This is probably somewhere in here. I do have to kind of pay attention to where I'm at on the 4 hour. So I'm saying, all right, well, I'm countering the daily, which I know is 65 to 60. So that 60 to 65 is going to be my daily with that primary reading in that 63 range. But ultimately, I got to realize I'm countering the higher time frame. So why did I bring it up? Because at this point on the 1 hour, oh, look at this first possibility of a 1 hour downtrend utilizing this system. And it's always just about your system. And your system is always about consistency, right? Can I be consistent in my approach? Because if I can be consistent in my approach, I can develop ways to utilize edge. Because in this situation where I said, oh, well, look, 1 hour suddenly headed south. Well, look what then starts to happen when we use a very impressive tool. Hold on a rejection, right? Now you come back up for these hold. Now this one didn't, but you have a divergence. So hold on that rejection, right? You come into another one, say big reset up there, fall down, etc. Right? And when you get into like a 4 hour, even better. But the idea is that you can start to utilize elements of edge when that occurs. Well, guess what happens? We lost that level, and we're looking for some form of a rejection. Doesn't really happen until these midpoint levels. But again, she presents lower. And I'm not even saying you should have caught shorts or anything. The real key here would just be of, hey, paying attention. Of like, oh, 1 hour got shaky. Now we noticed it, or we would notice it, especially when you get good over here, that a trend became a crawl, right? This is that effort result type of thing. And suddenly it became more of a crawl, more of a crawl, more of a crawl. But it's on a low time frame. It's not the end of the world. But the idea is you are in 1 hour downtrend mode utilizing this system until this very moment of this particular video. And what do we need to happen to flip that? Well, we just need price to come up, take that particular level, come back and hold one of these particular levels, now make a higher high over whatever that wick was that it then put in place. And then at that moment, I'm back in 1 hour trend and I'm looking for longs, right? But in this case, my idea would have been, if I was staying true to the 1 hour and below, look for reasons to long, right? Look for reasons to short from this point on. And I certainly would have been in a situation to where I would have been on guard, at least for most things. And it would have treated me well. Now, why bring this up? Well, let's just see where we're at now, right? On the 4 hour, though, that was the 1 hour. What's going on with that? Well, interestingly enough, because of the way that the 1 hour slowed down, we did get the same warning here on that big old candle. So, oh, hold on, what's going on? But she popped back up, all right? Didn't get any clear signs until there. Oh, we're feeling pretty good about the continuation now. It does, in fact, continue higher. Another test that holds. Holding of the midpoint, we're good with that as well. Now, what happens on these, one thing that I will point out is that once you do get into a system like this, if you get this hold, keep in mind, I can also then immediately, because you see this big candle, on a 4 hour, yeah, if I'm waiting for a big ass 4 hour confirmation candle, sometimes you're going to be late. When I get that hold, I then shrink down to that 1 hour, that 30 minute, that 15 minute. I don't tend to go too much lower. I know we found like the 39K bottom on the 5 minute on Discord together, but usually I'm on that 15 minute or higher for stuff like that. But I would go into that. Just kind of take a look real quick on that 15 minute where that circle is, to where I would have said, oh, okay, well, can I find a reason to long now once this takes place, once I had that wick scenario in there, and I came back in another hold, and that would have been right there, right? Just right there at that 68.3 level where I say, okay, well, I'm watching the range, nice healthy candle. Now you might have By the way, you could have also said, I would have been perfectly fine. I don't want you to think, oh, there's only one way. Maybe I take that big doji that I have there and say, well, I want to take that out at least. So it would have been the next candle in that situation, which is fine. But that could have given me an idea where I said, well, I'm looking for reasons to long. I can try to jump the gun a little bit by going to a lower time frame and seeing if I can find a reason that makes more sense. And there could have been some other things. Maybe I want FSR to cross bullish, etc. So it could be other things. By the way, I could have went in for a second cross. That would have happened before this. A lot of different things. Hindsight is always easier. That's why I'm just showing you the price action element, because this is certainly something I would do. But that just kind of gives you some insight of how that could have worked if you were trying to go about it that way. But ultimately, looking at that 4-hour trend again, what then happens? Well, again, we get the wake up of, uh-oh, she broke below the bottom band again. Certainly concerned. Rejection on the top side of the band. And it happens to also then take out this level right there. So remember, when this happens, somehow I ended up teaching half the system, which is hilarious. That was not my intention, but trust me, wait for the teach videos. It's going to be a lot better anyway to really understand it. But like usual, I kind of went a little long on that. But it is what it is. This, at least it'll make more sense for those that care. I don't care if only 10 people want it. That's fine. The idea is that if it helps 10 people, that's great. You see that there? That's the confirmation of saying, oh, the 4-hour flipped, right? Using this system. Is it perfect? No. Is it supposed to be perfect? No. It's supposed to be chunky, right? I want to get chunks, and that's the idea. So we flipped. What am I looking for? A rejection, right? Some kind of element of rejection. Could I then went to a lower time frame and look for reasons to short? Yes, I could have, right? Or I could have waited for this, candle to where I said, oh, local top here, took out that candle right there, and then at least I catch 3-4 nice candles down. Guess what I end up getting? Rejection of the midpoint. That's a perfect scenario. The midline rejection is a beautiful scenario that we like. Of course, a more bearish scenario would be that you made your way back up and you huffed and you puffed and you got overbought and it happened outside of the bottom band. Oh, thank you. That is awesome. I would love that. But the ideal normal scenario is, no, you come right back into that midpoint, show a rejection that shows that, hey, I might have some people that are thinking how I'm thinking, and they're putting their money there too and saying, no, we're going to short this, right? And by the way, maybe I got some smart money on my side too that's thinking the same thing. That's the concept. And guess what? Rejection, if I would have taken that to a lower time frame now, guess what? Do you think I would have found some good shorts? I would have, and it would have paid off. Ballsy, right? Because the higher time frame, we know what's going on with the daily and we know what's been going on with Bitcoin. So I'm not even suggesting that you should have been shorting Bitcoin at all in this situation. In fact, if you said, no, I wouldn't even consider shorting it, I would say, you know what? That's very wise. I'm cool with that. But would you have been longing? No. Hell no. You would not have been longing in that situation, utilizing the 4-hour as your directional bias, right? Utilizing this system. And that's the idea. And it's the same type of thing. You guys heard me the other day, right? What did I say the other day? Bulls will need, right? I said we need to start seeing low time frames show a series of higher lows, right? Has that happened? Have we seen the low time frames show a series of higher lows here? Nope, not at all, right? In fact, it was drifting, right? So we weren't seeing it at all. And then we need, I said, 69K needs to become a price that bulls live above, right? So let's mark that off. That's straight from Discord. Anyone that was there, what happens? Did 69K become a price that we lived above? No, not at all. So it remained low time frame, bear trend. And that's where we're at. And that's the idea of this. Now, the good news is, for those that want to be bullish, all this thing has done is come back into a nice daily trend test, utilizing just the single version of this, right? Which has been in place, by the way. This thing has been in place. I would call this a break, because I got a break here and tip out lower low. So this is one of these fakies, right? So you get one of these fakies before you re-break. We talked about this actually on a different subject matter, where we seen like, oh, you had this breakage structure. You had this mini break here that actually came into a topside hold. That's just higher time frame stuff that's happening. That's why we always got to be open to both sides. But ultimately, the idea is that other than this little fluctuation where we said, hey, we're going to mark this. You guys remember this? I don't know. Some of you guys might remember. We had a little conversation on Discord where I said, oh, this is your chalk. In this range becomes very important. I know I'm putting a box on a box, so I'll separate it to make it a little more obvious. It's this box. We said, look, whoever wins this range is going to win big, right? That was the thought process. Right there at that point, you're thinking, oh, okay, we're back into bull mode for sure, even though there's a confusing element in here. But look at this thing. This trend, for the most part, other than that loop-de-loop you did right there, had you in a great position. And then, of course, we talked about this. Holding that top band on some sort of reset after consolidation is a beautiful thing that normally works out very well. And if it doesn't, that's a sign as well, right? So you get this consolidation, it barely pops back up, comes back in, like, oh, it's showing some weakness. But we still have, again, it's going to be the same ugly box. You still have a decent amount of room here, even on daily trend. It can break down this level. It could go back to, we can go back to this and know that, hey, ultimately daily trend could lose this level, come back in for a bigger mean reversion. That would be awesome. I would love for that to happen, because for me, that's I see that as opportunity. I don't need to be I don't need to make more money today. I want to take bigger advantage of the whole entire move, and I know that getting some kind of bigger pullback would be great. But does that mean it's going to happen? No. We'll see. It depends how greedy people are, etc. You still have this primary zone right here, like this. So this is top side right there, which I think we have marked off on the other chart anyway. So you have this situation where we say, well, really top side would be more like that. But because we had this wick down, we say, okay, well, this is a zone here. And once we lose that, I'll look for top side first. People were asking, like, well, how do you draw these zones? So I'm just looking top side to top wick, and then the entire range after. No magic, just levels that I'll pay attention to above all else. Sometimes when I have a zone like that, I mean, for me, I don't mark a lot of it off for myself. I'm going to mark this level. It'll be green. And it would be nice to see that hold, right? It would be a little easier. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed or anything, but in my opinion, this would make life a lot easier. Say, well, they showed a willingness to hold that particular topside level, because if not, you're then saying, well, I know I'm more open to the entire range if that happens, okay? But regardless, on the daily, normal stuff, this is something we like to see. If we want to go back in history to see where they come back in, come in for a midpoint test, hold for a little while, hold for a few days. We got a retest going on up here. Love this reset that's happening. Please give me the old zero. I love that. See these zero moves when that happens. Sometimes you go a zero. This is FSR that I'm talking about. Zero into a divergence, right? So you go zero into a divergence, and that's your low. That's it. Sometimes it's just a zero, right? You get like a this, and you go, oh, I broke zero. That's my bottom, right? So sometimes they go zero divergence or just zero. And in this, with this type of market, when you get this kind of bull market that we've seen, one thing that I really don't see happening, I'm very willing to come out on the record and say this, we are not going to see a top right now, at least. I should not say this. I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to tell you my truth. Always be open to anything, right? Use risk management always so that you're open to anything happening. Because I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth by saying it. But do I think there's any chance that we're doing some kind of top like this? I don't see any scenario where that happens. Can it happen? Yeah. I mean, I said you don't see any scenario. Of course, there's always a scenario. Some kind of news break, some kind of nonsense. GBTC says they're going to sell all of their Bitcoin. Some black swanish type scenario spooks the crap out of everyone and it flushes lower, right? But the chances of that are super low. Why? Here's the interesting part. Because I feel that no matter what we drop to, which is probably going to be somewhere in this zone here, like we're already at, then we're going to, at a very minimum, now I think we'll make a higher high, but at a very minimum, come back and sweep the highs or at least test this supply zone up here. Because of the formation, because of the momentum structure that we've seen, because of what's going on in the high time frame momentum. When we look at this daily, this weekly, it's just super rare to get that kind of top here. It's unusual. It would be highly unusual. So even if you came back into something like that on the weekly, I would still expect, no matter what, I expect much higher regardless, but I would, no matter what, expect some sort of pop back to where you see another sweep of these particular recent highs that we saw. And then we could have the conversation when we observe that to say, well, maybe we're in a tough spot there, and we have to consider some type of longer term consolidation, pullback, etc. At least it would make more sense there. It does not make a lot of sense right now. Now, on a daily scale, it makes perfect sense that, hey, you can have a significant pullback, which we're seeing. On the weekly scale, does make a lot of sense. And where these momentum views have been, I'm not going to break that out on this video. But again, I fully expect when we start to find some nice smoothing out action, you start seeing the lower time frames build some higher lows, etc. I fully expect it to bounce right back up and at a minimum retest these particular levels. So that's the idea as far as how that's concerned. But again, I've already showed you that even though I'm saying that, if you're utilizing a proper trend system, right, that gives you an idea of like, hey, and again, I've done this before, by the way, it's my 9 and 45 thing, same type of thing. So this is 4 hour, right? I don't want anyone to think anything different. Hold on one second. So you guys see me do this all the time, right? You're bearish here, right? Because you're not just red, but you're red and you've lost your moving averages finally, right? So it's like, oh, red, am I going to get a rejection? I got a rejection here. So same thing. We're playing shorts utilizing the regular systems that we use with 45, 45 and things like that. So anyone that's in that, if you're doing it right, not only did you get the red flip, right? So you've been green all the way through, but now once this is broken, you say, oh, okay, hold on a second. I would then technically be looking for shorts in this environment if I get some kind of rejection, and especially if I get a rejection with the old hidden on my FSR like that. Not to mention this is a triple, right? Is that a triple? It is a triple, right? So you guys know my triple that I love, right? Which is FSR smooth and RSI give me the same exact reading, which is what? Lower high, and it would be the reverse, obviously, for a short. But you see the lower high, I'll delete that because it's confusing. Where you're getting the old hidden, and hidden on that yellow one right there, which is the old smooth. So smooth, FSR, which is our faster version, and RSI. Now, do they have to agree? No, they don't have to agree. Is it extra magic if two agree? No, it's not. I just happen to like that when all three are showing me something like, oh, okay, all three of you are now in a position to where you're showing some element of hidden divergence. Not good. And guess what ends up happening? Flush out. So I do just want to point out right at the end here that you guys already have these systems. It's that you may not understand them, and I understand that, which is why I'm going to present yet another trend-based system that will hopefully be a little bit easier for some to follow. And then what I would suggest is that, if you follow it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, at some point begin to try to work yourself into this just because it's a cleaner look, right? Normally I wouldn't have all this stuff on the screen. This is a chart that I use for doing some research, right? So I would not normally have all that crap on my screen, right? I have plenty of these, literally hundreds of these type of chart, but this one will show you. It's like, no, on that 4 hour, actually probably even a cleaner look if you know what you're doing to go with this, and which is how we notice we're red, and we have a flip here in these moving averages, and we have rejections, and we have hidden divergence. It's a hell of a signal. It's one we line up, hit the golf ball, say, oh wow, I just popped my 7-iron 260 somehow. Nice one. You know what I mean? One of those is a nice setup, which is ideal. Again, that's why we wanted over 69,000, etc. So sorry to spend 5 minutes on that, but I did want to point out that didn't show you anything new and amazing. We already had it, but it may not make sense to you, and I understand. What I want is for people to understand that you have to put yourself in a position to where you can come up with a consistent approach to what you're doing. Forget what I'm doing, right? Forget what the guy on Twitter's doing. Forget what the dude who's posting, 750 coins is doing. I love those guys, by the way. The guys that are long 700 coins. Doesn't matter what pops. I'm long. See, remember when I posted that 7 weeks ago and that one 14 weeks ago? Good for you. Apparently, somehow you have $1 million in every coin that exists. But it is what it is. You got to flush out all the noise, including the Mr. Anderson noise, right? Forget my noise too. It has to be you. And how do you come to that? Well, you have to learn an element of a system, and then first you just have to understand it and begin to work with it. And then after that, you can begin the process of saying, all right, let me find my flaws. Let me figure out where I'm going wrong. Let me see where I'm getting myself in trouble. Let me see how I can perfect this a little bit better. And a lot of that is always going to be in review, right? The review sessions are the golden ones, right? The post analysis of your trade. Wait a second, did I follow this system the way it was intended to be followed? Yes or no? Okay, good, I did. All right, did I pay attention to my support and resistance because it's always market structure first, always? Was I paying attention to that within that, or did I get lost within my static moving averages here? Did I put myself into a position to where I focused on a rejection candle of some kind, or some element of a break of structure or change of character, or some other change that came into play? These are the things. Oh, did I care about when the 1 hour broke down? You know what I mean? These are the type of things that at some point you have to get yourself into a position to realize and say, well, when I get consistent in my approach, step one, then I can truly start to make these fine adjustments. And that's what's going to make someone a better trader. And you can always improve. I can improve, right? I'm trying to improve all the time, right? Which means you should definitely be trying to improve as well still, because that's a constant battle with me as well. And by the way, I still make mistakes all the time, dumb ass mistakes. There's no other way to put it, where I'll look and I go, what am I doing? This thing broke down. Like if I wanted to bring up, now a lot of these alts, I can show you that, man, they went crazy with the trends, right? But let's just, I'm not even going to bring it up. This video's long enough. But my point is that you could put yourself into a position here to at least have a system like this, where I just showed you, you would have been relatively long, right? For the vast majority of this move, even on the 1 hour, you would have been on guard on both the 1 hour and the 4 hour, which if you're on guard on the 4 hour, you better be on guard, period, right? If the 4 hour is showing you like, hey, we might have an issue, that is a sign for you to say, let me step back. You guys remember on Friday what I said? I said Friday, man, the 4 hour, right? I think it was somewhere in here where we had this situation. So this is the little blotch that we had here. Is this it? Whatever it was, we had whether this is it or not, I don't know what the date is. I think that's it. But on Friday we came in. I think what it is that we lost 69K, right, and changed. Then we came in, kind of took it back, lost it again. I was like, man, that is just a creepy look. I didn't like it, and it was enough that, especially combined with the trending look, for me to step out. I said flat out, I'm not doing anything this weekend. I'm just going to wait and watch. That was the idea. Now, I'm not a big weekend trader, but sometimes I'll say, well, let me put some risk on, or let me add some shorts if I need to, etc. I figured I'm just going to sit this one out completely and kind of see what I have coming on Monday, which was the idea. And why? Because I'm just getting some mixed views, right? So you're starting to see that, and you say, oh, okay, well, that will give me the insight to allow me to hold out of the picture, right? So with this, both on the 1 hour and the 4 hour, surely you were saying I'm either short or I'm out. There was no longs. You guys noticed that, right? No longs during this time frame. So if you got yourself in trouble, by the way, if I'm saying I'm not even considering longing Bitcoin, I'm probably not longing alts, right? And I say probably because there's times when Bitcoin comes into a big consolidation and then holds. Of course, once it starts to consolidate, yeah, you're going to look for alts to pop in that environment. But my point is that if it's a change where I say 1 hour to 4 hour suddenly is changing, in that environment, I might say, well, let me just stay clear of alts for a little bit as well, right? I definitely don't want to get myself in trouble. But you could do the same thing. I guess I should look. I'm sorry, I didn't want to go into this, but let's just kind of look at some of these alts. Ave, right? Ave is just kind of peek at one here. All right, really quickly, guys know that, oh yeah, that's right, this was our Hawk Watch guy and popped up, and we did get that big ass pop, which we liked, which is good. I'll keep that on for a moment. Let me see. Okay, really quickly here with Ave, you started so you see you had this healthy trend on the 1 hour. that got choppy, so we know that. But for the most part, you're catching trends on the 1 hour. Got choppy, caught that one. This one's choppy, by the way. I wouldn't have called that. But what it fell into on the 4 hour is a scenario here where you came up in, riding up. Again, you're riding this 4 hour, 4 hour, 4 hour, 4 hour. Huge move down. So that's scary as hell. But you had to take out that level at that point, completely reverse it. You could have understood. Now I would understand completely why you might have missed some of this stuff. But ultimately come back in, hold that bottom. We're long, we're long, we're long, etc. And then we're on guard, right? We're on guard here. And if I take out that low, which happens here, I'm literally in short mode, right? Well, look what happens. Right, perfect midpoint short at $128 down to 107, right? So in the midst of this, while people are getting their asses kicked, this could, I'm not saying did, this could have helped people, right? 4 hour trend again. Let's just kind of just focus on the 4 hour. I know Tau is kind of a weird one, but same thing. Even if it just shows you like, unclean. Like I don't like things that are choppy, right? I want it to either have that clean look like this, where I'm saying I'm holding and I'm playing that one, and I'm getting some holds, and now this hold. By the way, if this comes up and now makes a lower high, that's a warning sign, but that's more advanced. You'll get that later. Then it now there's your warning. Okay, I'm stepped out at this moment, right? And it better not take out the most recent low here. Once it does, I'm really actually looking for shorts. Rejection, right? Reject. Now you don't have to short something that's been flying, but I'm just making a point. You would have been sidelined or short. Same type of thing. Now I wanted to chop, so I don't even want to use this one as an example to claim any benefit. But certainly it would have pointed out to you that, hey, I should either be in a position to where I'm watching or I'm short in that environment. This guy, you can see what took place. We'll just do a couple real quick. We all had that same ugly action going back a couple weeks back that we know about, but then after that, reestablished itself, held, look for longs, big leg up, hold that level, big leg up again. By the way, hold that level, big leg up again, but into a lower high. That would have been another sign. More advanced, harder to read. Coming down, we're looking for it. Remember, you wouldn't have been long for any of this because you're heading back down and you're waiting for it to show you some type of local low, some kind of bullish engulfing, some type of rejection of this top band or mid band if you can. You'll even take the low band like these. All those things would be fine. And then what happens? You're not playing any of it. That's the idea. You wouldn't have been playing these, and that's the significant benefit that you would have on these. Just quick look, same thing. All of these losses, you're either looking for shorts now or not playing them at all. I'll just run through, same type of thing. You would have been on guard looking for shorts or nothing at all. And these are 4 hours, right? The 1 hour maybe even better. Same thing, perfect short right there. I'm not trying to claim perfection. I'm just really, the only thing I want to show you on me running through these really quickly is the fact that you would not have been in a position where you were looking for any longs. I got to run it at the moment. I have a meeting that was supposed to start. But this was just the intro to that. Let me know in comments on Discord if you guys definitely want this system. If you do, I'll try to get it out again in the next few weeks or so. I'm out.